Hey, Soraya, it's Jeff.
Hey, traveling man.
I am pooped, but I'm glad to be home. We had a great time.
Oh man, what a trip that you
Mm.
guys had. It was fun following you.
Yeah, we had a blast. We were all over Europe, Southern Europe, and spent our last few days relaxing in Greece. And we got home late last night, almost midnight. Woke up at 5 o'clock this morning. We didn't know where we were, what time it was. We had a great trip. We're really glad to be home.
Well, the saying, there's no rest for the weary. So there's no rest, man. Today, Steve Wynn.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to be talking about their new album, These Times, an album that we've been fortunate to have for the last, we got it about 6 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
So we've been able to listen to this for the last month and a half. I'm glad we're going to be able to talk about this with Steve.
Yeah, and for those of you listening, These Times is set for a release date of Friday, May 3rd. So coming up very, very soon.
Yes. And he's got a few other things happening real soon, too, that we'll get into.
Yes. So I say let's start the show.
Let's start it.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
A podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. All right, I say it's time we add him to the call.
Sounds good.
Hello.
Hey, Steve, it's Jeff and Soraya.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're doing
You
great.
jet lagged? Are you jet lagged?
Super jet lagged.
I bet you are.
Yeah, I was just telling Soraya we got in about midnight last night, California time, and my eyes popped open at 5 a.m. this morning, and I was just ready to go. But I had this very sleepy eyes, but I couldn't go back to sleep, and we were up 26 hours yesterday.
Oh, yeah, okay.
16 hours on a plane, on a couple different planes, but
Yep.
Yeah, it's good to be home.
Yeah, I bet. What a great trip, though. How cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. I can't imagine what it's like being Steve Wynn, traveling to all these places all the time, playing all these shows, playing everywhere. And for us, it's just a vacation.
Well, it's for me, too. A lifetime vacation.
Nice. Well, we're really excited to have you back on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about some of your traveling and other activities. But we really wanted to focus today on These Times, an album that comes out on Friday, May 3rd on Anti Records from the Dream Syndicate. Mm-hmm. So we definitely wanted to welcome you back to Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
It's great to be back. You guys how many shows have you had now?
I think we're approaching
28, 29.
Yeah, close.
That's great. I know. I've been trying to keep up, and I've heard a few, but that's great.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, you've been a wee bit busy, Steve. So we'll give you a pass on that one. Steve, before we start talking about These Times, we wanted to ask about a couple of other things. First, we wanted to ask you about the Record Store Day reissue. The reissues that Pat Thomas helped put together. The reissue includes the band's debut EP, the first full-length album, Days of Wine and Roses, and the 15-minute 7-inch that included an early version of That's What You Always Say. Are you pleased with these reissues? Do you like what's come out?
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job on that. It's which I would expect. Pat always does really good work and good reissue work for whatever he's doing, and also at the same time he probably knows my history and has very definite opinions on my history more than almost anybody out there. So I figured he would do a good job. But this kind of, when I got my copy in the mail, it blew me away. It was way beyond any expectations I had, just because I knew what was going to be in there. I knew the songs he was going to be using, and I knew he'd spoken to Kendra and Christy and Paul Cutler. But seeing it all together was just beautiful. Just the whole deal. And it was fun. It was actually, among other things, because of course I knew all the music that was in there, and of course, but I was very excited to see what the interviews were like, and that was really interesting to get the perspective of three people who don't go on record that much and talk about those days that often.
Yeah, yeah, that was one thing that I thought was really cool with that too. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to our medicine show episode, but in that regard, it was really cool for us to hear other perspectives too on some of these pieces that you have put together in the past, and hear perspectives on some of the artists that you worked with to put those together. And like you mentioned, that was great to read those on these reissues. Definitely.
That's a reminder that I have to hear that episode, because I didn't hear that, and I do want to, because that'll be interesting, because that's a record, that's a record that probably gets discussed and more than any of the records I've made. So it's the people really come around to it, but it's a complicated little record.
Yeah.
I just a couple months ago, I know you were in Oslo just for a few hours, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was there a couple months ago for some shows, and there's a really, really great series. I don't know if you know about this. It's kind of worldwide, called Classic Album Sundays. Do you know about this?
No.
This I don't know if I would call it a series or a program. It's kind of this international organization of people in 8 or 9 countries: Norway, different places in the U.S., Japan, Spain, a few other places, where they arrange these listening events. They'll so whoever is commandeering it in their town will find a venue, preferably a venue where it can get pretty dark, usually a really great sound system, and play a record, and people show up and listen to the whole record without saying anything, without looking at their phones. And at the end of their listening, there'll be a conversation. Maybe they'll have a guest, somebody who's involved in the record, or maybe a journalist. Anyway, in Oslo last March, they did a medicine show, and I was the guest. I was on a panel with a couple of journalists who had been around when the record came out, and they had this, in this particular one in Oslo, they had a $100,000 stereo system. I meant to write down what all the equipment was, but they told me this is like the greatest state of the art system in the universe or whatever.
Wow.
You might guess when you're in Norway at the airport, $100,000 in Norway is probably pays for a cup of coffee and a couple sandwiches. So
yeah,
it's all relative.
I did notice that. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. But anyway, I got to hear that record in a way I hadn't heard it since I was in the studio, and it was exciting to hear that, and then hear it that way. Really, just kind of remember all the things that went into it. I mean, I had this conversation with a lot of people, and I'm digressing, but I talk to people a lot about this, where how rarely, I shouldn't speak for you guys, but for me, definitely, how rarely we hear records where we listen to the entire thing and don't do anything else. Don't, converse. Don't look at something else. Don't look at your phone. Don't stop in the middle. But just listen to a record in its entirety, which I think we all did when we were younger all the time. And when I do that, which is rare, your mind goes to so many different places. It's almost like some weird psychological, trip of some sort, where you think about a lot of things in your life. And hearing that record loud and in complete high def supersonic version, and it was wild. It was like going back in time and experiencing it all over again.
Wow.
So that was pretty heavy. But that's the thing, which is that everyone's different about how they I know the records I've made. I know for the most part which songs are on which records, but I don't go back and listen that often. Usually I'll listen to old records when I'm getting ready for a tour, or trying to learn a song, or think about how I want to approach it, or and we can talk about this later, when I'm working on a project like I am with Pat right now, of collecting 10 years of my solo work all together, then I'll go back and dive in. But I'll often be surprised when I go back and hear an old record, even Days of Wine and Roses, which I've played live so much. When I hear those old records, they're not always what I expect to hear. They'll surprise me still. I think I build things in my mind, what I think they sound like and what they mean to me. And generally, what I feel like when I do hear them is like, oh yeah, it's actually maybe better than I thought, and the things maybe that I thought bugged me about it don't bug me anymore. So that's always a good thing.
Oh wow,
That's interesting to have.
Rather than the other way around. Rather than the other way around, where I hear things and say, "Oh my God, what was I thinking?" That doesn't happen too often. That's nice.
That's very cool. Yeah, I would imagine like to hear something with a fresh perspective after years of recording it's got to be a strange trip.
It is, and it is definitely because you just, for one thing, if you play live, like you play those songs live. I don't have the kind of talent that some people do with Bob Dylan or the Grateful Dead or people like that. But so I don't know how many times I've played each song. There are people that know things like that for other bands. But I would guess probably the song I've played live more than any other song is That's What You Always Say.
Yeah.
Over the years, I would think probably that's one I played the most. And in my mind, that song just becomes whatever I'm doing with it live. With the way each band plays it, there are new arrangements, things. The way I sing it now. The way I sing on Days of Wine and Roses, I don't even sing like that anymore. And it's funny to hear that now because, what was going on there? And so it's sometimes good to go back and check those things out. And when I hear Days of Wine and Roses now, which, I like, quite a bit, I'm proud of to have made that record. But I can tell that for that one brief blip in my life, or whatever that moment was when I was playing shows with that band and writing those songs, I was listening to a fair amount of English stuff. I can hear it in there. I can hear, to me, when I hear that record, I hear that, oh yeah, I was kind of digging Echo and the Bunnymen and Joy Division at that moment, and which is not stuff we get compared to very much, but it's in that record for sure.
Yeah, that's a great record. We're really glad that Pat worked with you guys to put that out for this Record Store Day release and threw in the debut EP, as Soraya mentioned, and the 15 minutes 7-inch single, so that's great for
in its original form. The single actually as a single, which is great.
Yeah.
It's nice they did that.
Us collectors are really glad that you guys worked together to put that out.
He does it right. I appreciate that he does that.
Yeah, he's one of the best when it comes to those kind of things, for sure. And he's a good guy, too.
He is. One of my longest friends. Well, I was just actually talking to somebody about the night I met him because I was talking to a friend yesterday who lived in Rochester in the mid-'80s, and she was saying, I saw you play the first time at a show in Rochester in '85. I said, yes, and Absolute Gray opened that show, and that's the night I met Pat Thomas.
Wow.
You can't always pin down the day you met somebody, but I know exactly where and when I met Pat.
Wow. That's very cool. Very cool. Absolute great band. We really like them, too.
Yeah. They were great. They were really good.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about playing shows live. That was one other thing that we wanted to talk about before we jump into these times. You're always touring like crazy. This is nothing new for you. And earlier this year, you did a few songs with the Baseball Project as part of the Kinks Wild Honey tribute. You did some solo shows in Europe and Norway and a bunch of places. And the Dream Syndicate recently played a few shows opening for Mott the freaking Hoople. What? Insane.
4 shows.
Wow. Yeah. And are there going to be more shows where you're opening for Mott the Hoople?
Well, I hope so. That'd be great. Yeah. I don't know if there are even going to be more Mott the Hoople shows. I don't think they even know that.
Okay.
But I know that a lot of people are disappointed they didn't come out to the West Coast, and I kind of hope that they do West Coast shows and they bring us out there because it was so exciting. It was I'm a big fan. I grew up listening to Mott the Hoople, and to be able to see them 4 nights, in 4 in a row, and let alone actually be on the same stage was great, and to hang out with them. It's an interesting project. I think people who follow them know the concert is called Mott the Hoople 74. And it's essentially Ian Hunter and the Rant Band, augmented by Morgan Fisher and Ariel Bender from the 74 lineup. And so, a cynical person could say, well, that sounds like it's an Ian Hunter show. And it wasn't. It really felt like seeing Mott the Hoople around the time they made that live record, around 74. It really was. Everybody transformed into that moment, and the way they played the songs, and learning the arrangements. And, this thing I was talking to you earlier, I think about how songs evolve over time, and I've seen Ian Hunter, probably about a dozen times over the years, and with his band, and they're a great band, and they play Mott the Hoople songs, and they have their own way of doing it, and it sort of becomes the Ian Hunter interpretation of his history. But man, when they did these shows, it was 1974. It was great. So we had a good time, and they were very you know, Ian and the band like what we do and they understand what we do, so they're very supportive of us, which was fun. We didn't just feel like some opening act thrown out there and, you know, play your show and get the hell off the stage. Actually, you know, we were part of the family for those nights. And the funny thing is, at the time we were on tour with them, with Mott the Hoople, I decided to go back and reread Ian's book, his diary from '74, Rock and Roll Star, Diary of a Rock and Roll Star. And it was really surreal. I don't know if you read that book.
No.
It got reissued this year. Oh, I so recommend this. It's a book that inspired me so much when I was a kid, because it was something that we didn't get to see back then. You know, there was now, of course, obviously in the current age, we know what everyone's doing all the time, and every single artist and actor and politician is telling us, you know, every time they, you know, go to do anything throughout the day. But back then, the idea that you would actually see a behind-the-scenes glimpse at what Ian Hunter did on tour and what Mott the Hoople did, and not just like, you know, played a great show and the fans were great, but just like, this hotel stinks, I'm never staying at a Holiday Inn again, you know, and just details of what every little mundane detail was, you know, everything in their day was like. It made it more magical to me. When I was 14 and read that book, I thought, wow, this is what it's like. I want to do that, and turns out I did.
Wow. And that had to have been crazy. You're reading this book while on tour with Ian Hunter right there and in a dressing room nearby.
Well, I got to ask him questions. That was fun.
That is super cool. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw pictures where you actually joined the band on stage. Yeah,
which I have done. Usually when I play, because I've opened for Ian solo, I think now 8 times, something like that, 8 or 10 times. And he'll generally, whoever's kind of, I shouldn't assume everybody gets, but whenever I've opened for him, he'll have me come out and sing all the young dudes on the encore, which is really nice and it's fun to do. For these shows, I didn't assume anything because, you know, it's Mott the Hoople, it's a different thing, and like, you know, they're a gang, and it's almost like what they were doing was kind of in a way like a theater piece, like a Broadway show kind of thing. So I didn't presume anything. But the third night, Ian said, "Well, do you want to sing dudes with us?" Like, oh hell yeah! So I got to get this. I got to get there and, you know, sing that in that context. It was really, really fun. And then the next night, the last night of our tour, they invited the whole band up there, and that was just great.
Wow.
You know, it's incredible. But I will say this. It's a really hard song to sing. It's like that chorus is like, you know, you get way up there.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because if you see I think there are YouTube clips of the version we did in Boston. And I will confess right here that when I sing All the Young Dudes with Ian, I sort of don't hit that high note. All the young, the note on dudes, it's just too high up there. So I'll sing the notes around and kind of like sort of fake that one, you know, kind of like when you mount the Star Spangled Banner at a baseball game or something. It's like, you know, I'll sort of do that. And he came over in the chorus and stood over and just stood with me for the whole chorus. I thought, oh no, now Ian's going to know that I'm not hitting that note. But he seemed okay with it.
That is hilarious.
He's like, great, Steve, sing along. And he just stopped there. Why did he do that? But, you know, the jig is up.
That's classic. That's a great story.
Love it. All right, Steve. So we want to touch on a couple of things before we dig into the tracks. And so once again, for our listeners, the album These Times by the Dream Syndicate due this Friday, May 3rd, from Anti Records. The album has 10 new songs from the 21st century version of the band. And according to something mentioned in the press release, we wanted to use this quote and ask you a little bit about it. The press release states, quote, "It feels like a late night radio show that you might have heard as a kid, drifting off into dreams and wondering the next morning if any of it was real," end quote. So we've been listening to the album for the past month and a half, and Jeff and I are really loving this album. And we wanted to ask about songwriting for these songs that make up this virtual radio show.
Yeah, well, that's really the way it felt to me. I think got the intention to have this kind of thing. You know, I think one of the inspirations for this record for me is writing it was I've really in the last year gotten back into doing exactly that kind of thing I would do as a kid, where I would end the day by putting on a record and listening, you know, in bed as I'm drifting off. You know, I have memories of being a kid and having the Marantz receiver, the blue light glowing, and hearing a record and kind of just, that being the last thing in my conscious mind. And I have started it lately, and it's not always easy to find the right record to play. I've got a few favorites. Maybe, there's a few Eno records or Roxy Music records or things that feel just, hazy and surreal and magical and mysterious enough and not too jarring. And then kind of, I'm not going to play the Ramones, as falling asleep, which I'll play them any other time of the day. But, so I kind of wanted to make a record that I could do that with, a record that would fit that kind of function. And, and that would feel almost like our own mixtape, our own kind of, late night dreamy mixtape. And I think we did that. I think that was the idea. So the songs were all over the map. And actually, much like on How Did I Find Myself Here, we went in with more songs and recorded more songs than we used. I think we did 20 songs for each record. So both records could have been really different records, depending on how we put it together. But I would say of the 20 songs, they're all over the map. They're really different. They're short ones, long ones, they're like trippy ones, aggressive ones. And I think we went for the ones that just felt like a good 45-minute radio show. It has, there's certain records that do that for me, that feel like you're kind of going through someone's journey. That I think of Sandinista by The Clash being like that, and that's a record that gets knocked all the time. That maybe that's their medicine show or whatever, but it's a record people not. But I love that record because you're going on a little trip with The Clash. You're just kind of going through their heads and their record collections and it's kind of like you're just hanging out with them for a couple of hours. And and that's why I love that record, and why I'm trying to think of other things like that. But there's certain records that do that, and this is that kind of record, I think.
Wow. Yeah, Soraya and I were talking offline that we feel that These Times is definitely one of the strongest albums that the band has ever made.
Great.
We really like it from beginning to end.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, because you never know until they come out. You know how you feel about it, and how the band will feel about it. But until people hear it, you just never know. So that's great. I'm glad you dig it.
Yeah, we're totally digging it.
Very much so.
We did want to talk about some of the behind-the-scenes part. So the band recorded These Times at Montrose Studio in Richmond, Virginia, and it was co-produced by a guy that you've worked with before, right, Steve? I think in the later 80s you worked with John on My Midnight, Pick of the Litter, Sweetness and Light, a few of your records, right? So it was...
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, so it's co-produced by John Agnello, who's worked...
And Yellow.
I'm sorry?
And Yellow, just for correct, like, yeah, and Yellow.
Thank you. Yeah, so
yes.
He's worked with a number of artists, right? Like Waxahachie, Hold Steady, Dinosaur Jr., a bunch of artists. Why did you decide to...
Many Sonic Youth, yeah.
Why John for this record?
Well, it's a good question. On the last record, we wanted somebody to produce it and to just come and have an outside perspective to kind of free us up just to do our thing and jam and go wherever we wanted to go and be as free as we wanted to be, but sort of keep tabs on where we were going while we were doing that. And we brought in Chris Kakovas, who did a great job on the last record doing that. Although in the course of doing that, he ended up playing a lot of keyboards, and particularly on the title track, and through that became an integral part of the band and the shows we were doing live. So this time, he wasn't going to be that role. He was out in the studio with us. And I think we wanted somebody again to do that. John mixed the last album. He mixed How Did I Find Myself Here along with, like you're saying, a lot of my other records. And he just really... There are many things I love about working with John. I wouldn't have made so many records with him otherwise, but he has a great personality in the studio, and he's very positive and fun and keeps you kind of, from going down any spirals that you might when you're in the studio. But he's also really great with sound. He just knows. He's been doing it for a long time. He's made so many records, going back to, he's my age, but he'll tell stories about working with Aerosmith in the 70s. It's like, it's crazy how long he's been doing this since he was really a youngster. And he knows his way around a studio. He knows how to document a band. And I think that's why this record just sounds so good. And we didn't have to think about that part of things. We knew, especially for the Dream Syndicate, more than any project I do, we're best if we're just playing and not thinking, which we did a lot of on this record. We just kind of we just followed any direction. There was a lot of just free form jamming. There was a lot of taking simple songs and just letting them expand any way we wanted to let them. And we didn't want to have to be concentrating on the mondanities. Mondanities? Might be the second time I've mispronounced a word today, but the more boring things up in the studio. We just want to play, and he gave us that freedom to do that.
Wow, I did notice on a lot of the tunes on this album, there's a lot of great sounds. The production is really cool. Well, we'll get to it later, but Soraya and I were talking about the final trilogy, or the last 3 songs on the album. There's some really cool spacey sounds on there, but we'll get to those. But okay. The production is great. Well,
I think one thing, the 5 of us in the band and John, we all have records we love and, things we agree on, things we each like more than the other ones, whatever. But I think the thing that all of us have in common is we all have a real fondness for art rock of the 70s. Mm-hmm. And I think, bands like Roxy Music in particular, I think that's probably that was one of the bands that was maybe one of the bigger influences on this whole record. Just that we, the way they are a really weird, they have plenty of elements like they share a lot of things in common with the Velvet Underground, who I know were big influence on them, but they also have that kind of almost proggy kind of thing where it's like you're just creating this other universe, and they're just that is kind of a common thread to all of us on the record. So I think John helped push this record in that direction a little bit. Gave us the freedom to kind of like, okay, we're not going to be just a band rocking out on the stage, which we do pretty well, but we're going to be making a little trip, taking a little Paisley trip.
Nice. 100%. Jeff and I, in discussing this album, we've noticed that that's definitely a theme that carries it through. And yes, you've taken us on this trip. So I want to talk about the first track, The Way In. First of all, this track, for those of you who are going to run out and get this, I mean, the minute you press play on this, forget it, game over. This is a wonderful introduction to this album. And but to talk about The Way In, it's the 3rd song that the band's released to the public so far. And in the song you sing, working hard against the underwriter, got a dog in the fight, but I'm a lover, not a fighter. And we can't begin until we find a way in, trying to reconcile the past with the present, which one fits and which one doesn't. And we shed our skin just to find a way in.
Working hard against the underwriter, got a dog in the fight, but I'm a lover, not a fighter, and we can't begin till we find a way in. Trying to reconcile the past with the present, which one fits and which one doesn't, and we shed our skin just to find a way in.
This line, but these set of lines are beautiful. I mean, they're perfect. And trying to reconcile the past with the present, absolutely love this. What inspired you to write this song?
Well, like a lot of the songs, like most songs I write, and definitely the Dream Syndicate, music came first. So the sound was in place, and it really was, I think, was a favorite track of all of ours when we were recording. Then that song didn't have any words when we recorded. We just, it was called Valedictorian and I know why that was. I wrote this song on, like I do quite often. I don't know if this is going to make things more interesting or demystify or whatever, but I write a lot of the Dream Syndicate songs on GarageBand on my iPad, because I really find the way of putting chords together on that it surprises me and it's unpredictable. So it was a cool progression that we kind of all locked into. And when we finished recording the track, I started thinking about words I wanted to write to it. And I think the way I look at playing live, or the way I look at life in general, in most situations, but definitely look at playing live, is what is the way in tonight? What am I looking at? What is going on here? What does this room look like? What is this audience like? How am I feeling today? Is the band tired? Are we anxious? Does somebody have a fight today? And you look for any clue you can find to get inside something. And that's that like I say, that applies to that's love, that's cooking, that's that's creative thing. That's conversation. That's you're waking up in the morning. You know, if you're really conscious, you're always trying to find the way in. You're looking for clues to get there. And so that, you know, I think that was kind of what I wanted to talk about in the song. And it's also a funny thing to talk about for an opening track, because it really is like, what is the way into this record? What's good?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how can I set you up for this? So it's kind of playful, slightly silly at moments, and very literal to its intention. It's the key to get inside. But that's a real important thing. I think that people don't look for those clues often enough. They're always there. There's always something giving you and if you don't try too hard to impose, you know, that's the thing with the underwriter thing, which I definitely am an underwriter with the Dream Syndicate. You know, like if you don't impose too much on a situation, you'll be surprised and you'll know where to go. You won't have to work too hard to get there.
I love that. That's awesome. Very cool. Great song.
Amazing.
So, and it's really like a lot of this record. I think that when we recorded it, we recorded kind of the same amount of time as the last record. There's been kind of 20 days around, more or less, all the whole process, which is pretty relatively fast, but that's kind of how we do it. But the last day of recording was set aside for backing vocals, and Stephen McCarthy of the Long Riders, and he and I have done a lot of things together in Gutterball. He came up to New York to do some backing vocals, and I had a couple songs in mind that I want him to sing on. And I sent down the tracks to him, and he came up with parts for every single song on the record. He really, you know, just got excited about it. And just for one day in the studio, one 12-hour day, I let Stephen and Linda Pittman, my wife Linda, kind of loose on all the tracks. And I said, just keep singing until you guys can't stand up anymore. Let's keep doing stuff. And I think the backing vocals on this record is really what transformed so much of it. That kind of just took everything to a different place. And definitely on this song, on the way in, the stuff that Stephen sings on there, it's the first thing you hear on the record, his voice, that harmony on the opening, on the intro. And it just adds an extra magic thing where it just feels, even like going back to the late night DJ thing, it just feels like that's part of the theme of the radio show, is this Greek chorus of voices who are kind of guiding you along the whole way.
Yeah.
Very
Absolutely.
cool. Yeah, it sounds great. They sound great on there. Well, that brings us to the second track, which was also the second song that the band released, and that's Put Some Miles On. This one has one of my favorite verses, Steve. So you sing, it sounds like a classic road song to me. So, had a long way to go from the last gig to the next show. I was beaten, I was tired, but the AM radio was so inspired. Had to drive overnight Kansas City by the harsh daylight. I stuck my head out to feel the breeze. And then I took a few of these. I put some miles on.
Have a long way to go from the last gig to the next show. I was beat and I was tired, but the AM radio was so inspired. I had to drive overnight Kansas City by the harsh daylight. I stuck my head out to feel the breeze, and then I took a few of these. I put some miles on. Put some miles on. After the break of dawn, put some miles on.
It's great. So, like I said, this sounds like one of the classic road songs to me. But I also, in addition to the subject matter, I wanted to note that some of the tones on the guitars on this song are fabulous. So, going back to we were talking about John's production work, to me this song sounds like it's got like an 80s college rock vibe with the muted rhythm guitar and that flangery chorus sound on the lead.
Yeah.
Absolutely love the sound on this. It made me think, when you put these songs together, when you bring these songs, Steve, to the band, do you give direction to the band specifically with this album, or do you just let them bring to the table whatever comes to their mind?
It's always different. I mean, each song is different, and we'll talk about some as they go along, because like Blacklight has some more specific type of things. This one, not so much. And, you know, think about all those sounds, which, I mean, Jason Victor's incredible with the sounds he gets, and he's, you know, I don't even know what he's doing half the time. Yeah. I'll listen to something he plays, and I'll just think, I'll ask him, like, what are you doing back there? That's crazy. And he has a very, unique approach to playing guitar that doesn't always, reflect playing chords with the left hand and strumming with the right hand. It sounds like something totally different. And I like that. I mean, I think that going back to records, the art rock type records, or even Beatles records, because they were the first ones to do this, where all of a sudden you hear sounds on a record and you think, what is that? And as you get older, maybe, or if you start playing in bands, you say, oh, I know, he's got that. He has a flanger and a chorus pedal, and the tone is turned all the way down, like whatever. You realize how it's put together. But when you're hearing a lot of the stuff, you just think they're just sounds, and they're just magical sounds. And this record has a lot of that. And this song in particular, which is a crazy mix of sounds. I think I got this Danish guitar pedal. I'm not going to get too much into geeky stuff because it'll be a whole different kind of show. But there's a Danish guitar pedal company called Royce, RUSS, and I've just fallen in love with their stuff. And I've been playing a lot of his pedals. And he actually, knowing that, put together a Wine and Roses guitar pedal, which I was so proud of. He made it my own custom pedal, and it was a limited edition. He made 200 of them, and kind of my sound, which was it's great. But this pedal that I really got into with him is called a fuzz repeater, and it's a tremolo pedal, kind of like the kind of thing.
Right.
But it's a really hard metallic version of that, and everything on that pedal just sounds like something between Suicide or something other weird thing. It's like it's kind of almost industrial as well as, I guess, psychedelic in a way.
Wow.
And so I've been playing. That pedal became the sound of a lot of this record, and a lot of the songs, the outtakes too. To the point where the band at some point I think wanted to take that pedal away from me because you got to stop hitting that pedal. But I was so enamored with it, and that pedal is the sound of the song. That way the song starts. That kind of that pulse of the whole song. The rhythm track on this song is me. You have to follow that pedal because it's going like that, and you can't deviate from it. If the drums fall, if the band falls off of that beat, it's going to sound just horrible and weird and disorienting, and you might get sick. I don't know. But so Dennis had my guitar cranked in his phones, and he's using me as the rhythm track, the click track in a way. And so it's kind of a funny thing. So it has this very, you mentioned 80s. It has a very kind of almost like an 80s dance track vibe to it. It reminded me of things that I would never imagine us being compared to. I said, it sounds kind of like like a Berlin or that Major Tom song or something like that, but in a cool way. It just has this kind of, I don't know, this very hypnotic kind of thing going.
Yeah, you mentioned
the words are fun. The words are funny too. The words are just like another. I mean, I think the first two songs are the silliest ones, but it's kind of a triple pun. It's like putting some miles on is you literally drive. That's the second verse. You literally drive and you put some miles on. What we do is all we do on the road all the time. It's a matter of miles. But the first verse is a little bit referring to a kind of oblique way to putting some miles on. Just so time passes, you get older, and you put some. The calendar pages tear up and you put some miles on. And the third verse is just literally you put on some Miles Davis on the stereo and see what happens.
Perfect.
There's miles everywhere.
I love it.
All right. So, Jeff, get out your black light. So, track 3, Black Light. First song that the band released from the album, very different sound for the band, starting with a little keyboard melody and some very dreamy leads, and the song ends with the lyric, suspended by the night, it's funny the things you see when you flip on the black light, exposed against the night, the colors flip and reunite. That's the lure of the black light.
Suspended by the night, it's funny the things you see when you flip on the black light. Exposed against the night, colors flip and reunite. That's the lure of the black light.
I absolutely love the imagery in this song. Anything you want to share with us about either writing the song or producing the song? Because this is really very interesting track.
Did you ever have a black light or black light posters or anything like that?
Back in the 70s, I knew them well.
And then Soraya.
Okay, great.
Soraya, did you want to share our recent experience?
Yeah, so for the recent blacklight poster that was released for the 3x4 poster, Jeff and I both got it, and we both had to buy black lights to go with it. So
how does it look?
It looks great.
Brilliant.
It looks great.
Oh, I got to try that out. Yeah. I got to do it.
It looks so cool. It's so cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I never had a black light, and I always wanted to have one. I still, my dream is to turn one of my rooms into a black light poster den. And I think that's because when I was growing up in LA, there was a store in Westwood Village near where I grew up called Vogue Records, and they had and like a lot of stores back then, but this one in particular had this really great black light room. You'd walk in there, and they had all their, Beatles and whatever. I can't remember like crazy R. Crumb type stuff and Kama Sutra things and just all kinds of stuff, And it was, and I would walk in that room, and it was just magical to me. It was walking in that room was as magical as any record I heard back then. Like I couldn't wait to be back in there, just standing in there staring at it. And I really did love just the way everything transformed. Everything became a different world when you were in there. And I think that was lyrically part of the idea of the song, just like the way things appear and the way you imagine things to be, how easily it is to switch your perspective in a flash. And literally, a black light will do that. You look at the same painting, the same poster, and then flip the black light on, and it's something totally different. And I think that was kind of the whole song was about that, but also about commenting on the world we're in right now. Like a lot of the songs on this record are very kind of topical and social commentary without being specific, events and people and things and political viewpoints, but they're about where we're at, and everything black is white and white is black. I mean, our whole perception on the world has changed, and what we see as real and acceptable and normal is upside down. So that was a lot of what the song is about. It's just like it's so easy to shift your perception on everything so quickly, and so that's what lyrically what the song is about. Musically, it's I tend to want. I've written and recorded about 400 songs now, and then written a lot more that I haven't recorded. And at this point, I mean, I love writing as much as I ever did, but I need to trick myself. I need to almost, when I write a song alone, I have to almost invent a co-writer that I can respond to, so I'm surprised. And I do that by getting new toys. So I spoke earlier about GarageBand on my iPad, which became my favorite toy. Last year, I got this crazy sequencer, and I hate to turn this great podcast into a gear show, so I won't go too far and bore people with it. But it was a sequencer like was popular in the 70s, like Giorgio Moroder or Switched on Bach or whatever, that kind of thing, where or Pete Townsend, Bob O'Reilly, where you program a pattern, and you can change all the parameters, and you build these really great repetitive patterns. And this machine it's called an Arturia Beat Step Pro for you. For anybody who wants to look it up, it's pretty cheap, and it's like a little toy. Which for me, the more toy-like the equipment, the more fun it is to write. And this really is like one step away from Fisher Price. You're just turning knobs and notes and rhythms and sequences change. And I wrote a lot of songs with this. I went crazy. And on this record, Blacklight and the last song, Treading Water Underneath the Stars, are both from writing with this thing. We're just like, I had this melody. So when you're talking about what I bring to the band, there was that melody that Chris plays on keyboard was the thing I'd written. And I said, well, I don't know what's going to happen with the song, but that's got to be there. And it is for the whole song.
Wow, that is cool. It's a great tune. And that's really cool to hear that origin story about where that came from. Yeah. It's definitely that undercurrent that's going through the entire song, keeping it moving. I love it.
Well, one thing I really like, and I think we do on this record a bit, and which we've always done, and I think is a very kind of psychedelic thing, or, you know, and by psychedelic I mean it could be even a jazz thing or whatever, but there's something about taking a repeating thing, a repeating melody, a repeating chord progression, and just never varying it, but then developing other melodies from that repetition. So it's exciting. It's like, you know, you can just play two notes over and over, like they can do like a, you know, like a Steve Reich or Laurie Anderson kind of thing, where it just repeats over and over, but all of a sudden that repetition just invents other melodies. Other things start happening. It's like, you know, when you stare at you stare at a poster along that some of those are things where you start seeing different things. I love that, and I guess that's what's always made things I do psychedelic. I just have this, you know, for me, I can handle the same two notes over and over again for hours. I'm weird that way, and I know not everyone's like that. And even people I work with might prefer verses and choruses and hooks and development. I dig that. I'm a fan of pop music, but I just love repetition. And it's something the Dream Syndicate does pretty well.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
this song is like that, where this song is like there's not much going on. It's like it just kind of is that progression, but a lot just, you know, it trips you out. It gives you, I think it allows you to get deeper into your own head when you do that sort of thing. Because, you know, if you barrage people with chord changes and melodies and hooks, which again I love, but if you do that, it's like, look, we're going to take care of all the work for you. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
This kind of music, it says, we're going on a journey, you're going on too, and we may not go to the same place, but I'll see you at the end. We'll see what happened.
Wow.
That's kind of our thing.
I love it. Yeah, now that you mentioned that, Soraya mentioned that when she was introducing the song, that it is a departure for the band, but you're absolutely right. That's the commonality there, is that you take that simple line and then build on that and build, like it ebbs and flows off of that. Usually that's with Mark holding down like the bass line, right? And then you guys do your thing on top of that. But
Mark is a great bass player for that kind of thing. He is, you know, I mean, every member of the band is completely indispensable to what we do, like a good band should be. But something about the way Mark plays and the way he will, it's for a guy who's been playing bass his whole life, an incredible musician. He's very happy to play the same thing over and over. He loves that, and he does it so with such conviction and strength, but also with just that slight variation each time where you feel, you know, you get, it's hypnotic. It's great.
yeah, absolutely agree. That is definitely one of the many strengths for Dream Syndicate. Absolutely. Well,
I think it's one of the strengths. I think it's one of the strengths of Dream Syndicate. You know, I could say Dream Syndicate 21st century, because I think it's really. I think at this point we're a different band than the band in the 80s. I think we just kind of become a different kind of thing. And I think Mark is one of the keys to what we are now. I think there's something about, you know, I think when we were together in the 80s, and you know, and Mark might take issue with this, probably not, but I think, you know, he was the new guy for, you know, even though he was in the band for 4 years, but I think a lot of the time in the band back then, he was just trying to catch up with what the Dream Syndicate meant and his role in it. Now he is, as much as anything, the role of what we are. The way he plays is so much what these two records are all about.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, Steve, I think that could be said about all of the members of the band, because I think each member of this current lineup is absolutely essential to the sound that you guys make now. I mean, we could say the same thing, right, about Jason or definitely Dennis, and of course you. And then Chris's
and
input.
Chris too, and Chris as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's what I grew up listening to, and that it's bands, when a group of artists get together and they combine their creativity and different experiences of life and music and bring that together and build something together. That's what I love, is bands putting together music, more so than individual artists. But Dream Syndicate is definitely a band that does that, where each member of the band brings in their own particular skill set, creativity, experiences, musical values, all that. Definitely, yeah. Mark is definitely a pivotal part of the band, for sure, from my vantage point as well. Well, we did want to talk about.
I think,
go ahead.
I think it's why we're having more fun now than ever too, because I think we're aware of that. I think we have a lot of trust in each other. I think when you're younger and you're in a band, there's sometimes a feeling like, not always, but a lot of times where you don't know if the other people are getting what you do, or if you're being appreciated, or if someone else is getting more attention. You get more jealousies when you're starting out because you don't have maybe don't have the confidence or don't have the experience yet. And for us, we just have fun doing this. We just I'm happy to be just as a guitarist, for example, to be just part of the whole scenery and have something else happening. As long as it feels good and feels exciting, and I don't care what my role in it is. And I think we're, I'm curious to see where this band will go, because it is, the last record on How to Find Myself Here, we're trying to, I guess, bridge the gap between who we were back in the 80s for people who were, coming aboard again, and taking it to where we were now. And that's, easier said than done. That's a tough balance. And we did it really well. And doing it on the last record gave us the freedom this time around to not even worry about who we were. And that's really, I think, we knew we're the Dream Syndicate, and we knew, what we'd done before. But on this record, there's no concern about referencing the past. It's like, this is just who we are right now. And that was liberating.
I would imagine that would definitely feel good to be able to go into that without having that burden, right? So the next song, we wanted to talk about Bullet Holes. So that's song number 4. And Soraya and I were talking a little bit about this. I didn't know whether I should bring up how I felt about it. And I know that you have mentioned, I love the song. You've mentioned AM radio a lot. To me, this one has little tiny elements of like some of the great 70s light rock songs. And it's because of the backing vocals that we were talking about earlier that came into it. And some of those songs that I grew up listening to in the 70s just have such a cool vibe to it. And I think you guys totally captured that, a little element of that in this song. My favorite line in the song is, the tension in the fight just faded overnight. I see the bullet holes, the history that no one knows, just the way the story goes. It's all right.
The tension and fight just faded overnight. I see the bullet holes, the history that no one knows, just the way the story goes. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright.
So that it kind of goes with that same kind of feeling of the vibe of the song. This is a great one.
Thanks. And it's funny, the AM radio thing. I totally get that. I think that is there, and the backing vocals do that. And this was actually one where I think John and Yellow really, I think it was his favorite track, or the way he felt just the most. I don't know, he was the runaway horse, just saying, let me at this one. And he really built this kind of sonic structure there where, you really, when I hear that, I do know because I was there and I can kind of remember, but you don't really identify anything as being, that's a guitar, that's a keyboard, this is just kind of sound. It's just this floating, beautiful sound with the harmonies. I think there are 4 acoustic guitars and a pump organ and a few various keyboards and electric guitars and this crazy stuff on there. But it all just feels like one sound. So yeah, the 70s AM radio thing, I was kind of joking to Jason the other day. It reminds me of something off of like one of those mid-70s George Harrison records that nobody listens to anymore. It's kind of like the deep track on Extra Texture or something like that.
Yeah.
But which is a good thing. I like those records a lot.
Yeah.
Lyrically, it's like I said, a lot of the songs are very much about this. The reason it's called These Times is it's about where we're at. And I think the theme of this song is about imagining what the feeling is after you've passed through a very difficult time, a time where it seems like it's never going to get better. And this could be, you can make of that what you will. Our current political situation, it could be a lot of things, but that moment when everything that seemed like it couldn't ever get good again, like we're just going to get worse forever, all of a sudden isn't anymore. And what that feels like. And yet you're still scarred. You still show the scars of what happened to you. You'll never be the same again. Your world will never be the same again, but it just might work out. And that's kind of what the song is all about. And so it's a very hopeful song, and it's especially given where we are right now. It's just like, yeah, you might make it through, and what will that feel like? And so I think the music matches that too. It just kind of is it's like the sun coming up. Even though I said the record is a 3 a.m. radio show, this is kind of like the first glimpse of sunlight.
I love it.
Yes. And then the next song, Still Here Now, as I start to think of this radio show, this, 3 a.m. radio show, you've given us, the band's given us these different takes and different styles and different sounds, and then we get Still Here Now, which could very well be the band's 2019 theme song. The lead guitar on this song is absolutely outstanding. And
so good.
My favorite line from this, or lines, are, if we change our mind, will anyone forget? Still Here Now.
If we change our mind, will anyone forget? Still here now. We're still here now.
Inspiration for this song came from?
I think it ties with Bullet Holes a little bit too. Just kind of like after the catastrophe, after what happens after you pass through something difficult. Same kind of thing. It's again kind of optimistic but more caustic in a way. This is actually the music is a holdover from the last album. There are two songs on the record that were leftover tracks from How Did I Find Myself Here, and this is one we really liked a lot from the last album, but just couldn't figure out how it fit on what we were doing then. So it was kind of a favorite track of all of ours. So this time it just fit in better, and like the other ones, it didn't have words. I generally do write music. Almost always write music first, but with the Dream Syndicate, my tendency is to not write words until the song is completely recorded, because I kind of want to see what it's going to feel like, and then almost like a Rorschach test or a Ouija board or something like that. I say, well, what's going on here? What am I? What should I be singing about? What story is music telling me? And kind of just try to follow that. And so this song is a very, melancholy, haunted kind of progression. And you're right, the lead playing is fantastic, and it's just complete, Jason Victor Rockstar, 101, just really beautiful, epic solo. And I just thought about the idea that that you pass through something that haunts you, that challenges you, that's difficult, and the defiance of making it to the other side.
I love the optimism in that.
Kind of two songs in a row that kind of about that, and we like a lot of times with records, it's hard to find a title for the record. Finding a band name is the first tough thing, and we kind of lucked into a good one right away. So I think that we had that one down. But album titles can be really tough, and this one just these times made sense because it really is. It is a topical record without being didactic, without hitting you over the head with specific things. Mainly, and I've been talking about this a lot. It's hard to write songs, or I'm sure write novels or screenplays now, or anything creative, because if you don't comment on what's happening, you're just kind of you're sort of being in denial, because we all know what's happening. We're all aware of every moment of the day, the challenges we have in the world right now. But if you comment specifically, it's going to be dated in 2 days. So it's a frustrating thing where you want to say something about what's going on. So I think on this record, a lot of the lyrics and a lot of even the approach to the music we made is kind of like we're in the middle of this very unique time, and we're feeling something, and how can we maybe talk about the more universal, overriding things that may be, that are always going to be there, rather than this happened in the news this morning, which you can't do. It's going to be, it would be ancient history. Mm-hmm. So we're talking politics and gear so far. So
both apply to these times, among many other things. So that's great. Well, the next song, the band definitely picks up the tempo with Speedway. I think that's probably Chris playing the organ sound on this one. It is, yeah. So that's a great
Highway 61 kind of organ sound. That's fun.
Yeah. So that sounds great on this song.
I sense there'll be some shaking just before the wheels come loose. It's never too late, but it still ain't any use. Banging on the shuttered doorway, the owner is fast asleep. Gonna work it out this time, maybe just for keeps. Don't stick around if you can't put the handle down. The stakes are high if you run around with the crowd on the speedway.
So Chris was more of a full-time member recording this album?
Oh yeah, he was playing with us in the studio the whole time. We've been playing live with him quite a bit. We did almost all the touring with him on the last record. So we recorded, not keyboards as an overdub, but live. I mean, the way we always do it was live in the studio, all happening at once. Sure, there were overdubs, of course, and things that changed here and there, but really, most of this record is down to the band playing together. It's kind of what we do best. And so he's right there with us. And this is a funny song because, this one, being completely candid, there are always songs on every record with every band where somebody loves this one, somebody doesn't want this on the record, somebody insists it has to go on the record. This was kind of my song. There was, I think, resistance from the band, and I kept saying, I really, really like this song. I'm going to really insist on doing this. And I think I just railroaded it through, and by the end, everybody got into it. It was kind of I think we all felt like this record was a little more a step forward, a little more, moody, psychedelic, art rock, what have you, whatever you want to call it. And this song's more of a throwback. It's just a straight ahead, just, barrel house, trashy rock song. But it felt like it fit somehow. And I campaigned heavily, and at the end went out. I love this one. and I think the rest of the band does too, thankfully.
Yeah, in the end. I'm glad you won out. I'm glad that the band all got on board on that one. This is a great tune.
I think it needed I think there had to be in this record at least a song or two or one song that felt just like just complete catharsis, just going out and just going after it. And so it's a nice thing in the middle of the record to say, all right, just everybody, put the pedal to the metal and go crazy.
Nice.
Perfect. And then, so that leads us into recovery mode. And I was telling Jeff that this is now, this and Space Age are the two songs that are just on repeat for me right now. Like
Great.
Every time I listen to the album, something strikes me differently, but those two songs right now are in heavy repeat for me. But in recovery mode, in the chorus, you sing, I'm losing grip on the mother load, sliding into recovery mode.
Now take a deep breath, stop. Now show me what you got. Just as I thought, you want a second shot. You came to the right place. You got a nice face. What if your saving grace was lost in the chase? I'm losing grip on the mother lode, sliding into recovery mode. Recovery mode.
I'm just a huge fan of this song, and wanted to know again, what's this song? What was your inspiration, or what had kind of grabbed your attention?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it is a song about. It kind of is what it says. It's kind of a song about recovery and just overcoming whatever addiction it might be. Take your pick, but anything that you have to kind of examining yourself and who you think you are, what you might think you're all about, and questioning that. Just think, wait a second. Do you have to be this way? Does it have to be this way? And if you do change it, what remains of you? And I think that's kind of it. And it's something a lot of people. Well, you go through that your whole life, really. Hopefully you do. Hopefully, at some point in your life or throughout your life, you question those things. There's whether through therapy or quitting things or late night conversations with friends over a glass of wine, whatever it takes to think, is this who I am? Is this what I have to be? And so that was kind of the lyrical theme of that. And I'm seeing it a lot in people I know. I think we are in a time, the idea of the whole day of recovery for that sort of thing. 30 years ago, people didn't talk about that. It's like, well, you just do your thing, drink 10 bottles of wine, do 5 lines of coke, don't wear a seatbelt, go crazy. And I don't want to reduce it to just bad behavior. It could be anything, but just I think people now examine what they are and what they could be, maybe a little more than other times. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I do know a lot of people who are going through abstinence from various things. So I'm just kind of examining that.
Yeah, it's a great song.
I think the last four songs on this record kind of are their own little mini record of the whole thing. Recovery Mode and Whole World's Watching and Space Age and Treading Water Underneath the Stars. I think it's almost kind of like this is where it goes into the little art rock suite. I think those four fit together really well. Where sort of you've already been kind of dreaming and tripping out, and now you're going to really just go 2 steps deeper. And I like that about. I like to have the record kind of. I've always liked that kind of thing in records. I think when I sequence records, that's how I usually tend to do it. Where the first side is, well, here's kind of the more straightforward songs that stand on their own, and the second side is its own journey. And I think Days of Wine and Roses was like that. I think Medicine Show was like that. I think the last album was like that. And a lot of my favorite records are like that. And definitely this one does that. It's kind of like, now we're going to settle in. Now, you're with us so far. We're going to really take you to the finish line and really trip you out now.
Yeah.
And it's the formula. It's the formula I like a lot. Maybe I shouldn't do it every time, but I do like that.
Well, Jeff and I were talking about this, especially the last 3 tracks, but for me, it includes Recovery Mode. This is kind of like, let go. You let go, and the sound is just going to take you to the outer edges. And that's how I feel about those last 4. So I'm with you. I like the formula.
It's like when you go on a ride at an amusement park, and you start off with a little hill, or maybe up the steep incline on the roller coaster, and always, on a good ride or a good concert or a good lots of things, but there's always a thing where you think you know what it's going to be like. You think by now you've kind of got to figure it out, and then you pull the rug out at the end. You just completely shake yourself up at the end, and that's an effective thing. That if everything is one way for the entire time, and this could be applied to anything, but it was one way the entire time, and you settle into something that's predictable, you kind of stop paying attention. It's shaking things up. It's exciting. It's giving a seeming idea of comfort, and then shaking that up. That's when good things happen.
Right. Yeah.
But it's something we do live all the time too. It's something we like to do where you're sort of like, if you're completely just unpredictable from the get go, that's predictable too.
Yep.
It's something about, and again, it goes back to repetition. It's about just repeating things over and over again till you're lulled in something, and then just shaking it up when you think you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We do that live a lot with the flow of the set. We do it a lot with silence. We use silence a lot in our live show because it just it's jarring.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to surprise. That's usually the best thing.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I think the Dream Syndicate is the one band that I've witnessed as an audience member where you guys have had the longest period of silence on stage, more so than any other band, in a break in a song here or a song there. And it's funny to look around at the audience and see the reactions, because sometimes that will go maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and usually, the band will kick back in, and you guys will let that ride, and it's so great. I absolutely love that when you guys do that.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's exciting for us, too. It's just the type of thing where you just, making yourself uncomfortable. And I think, I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of musical, is empathy. I think we're generally, an empathetic species where I think we naturally want things to go well for people. We see people on the sidewalk and see something and it's like, oh, is that guy going to be okay? Or, or in a movie, we worry about characters and we get wrapped up in them. And I think in music too, when you see a band that's taking chances, you get nervous for them in a way. I think it's one of the great things about jamming is a band that can jam really well. It's exciting, but also part of the excitement is, oh no, are they going to lose it? And then when they don't, you're so excited. But when you feel like they might, just go nowhere, it's kind of awkward and frustrating, and you have that bit of tension. And that's not all music deals with those things. A lot of music, and like I said, there's a lot of ways to do music, and they're all really good. And there's plenty of, there's no right or wrong way. But that kind of thing of jamming, we've always done from the very beginning, is I don't know, in a way, I'm not going to say it's our thing, because we didn't invent jamming, but I think as far as combining deep punk rock and garage and psychedelic and indie rock with jamming is something we've sort of always done and do pretty well.
Yep, you guys definitely excel at that for sure. Well, speaking about jamming, as a garage band member, I think The Whole World Is Watching has to be the most fun out of all these songs for you guys to play. It just sounds like a great song to play on it. And we were talking earlier about Mark Walton and his bass playing. He definitely holds this one down. And it sounds like you and Jason and Chris are just going off. This one sounds like it was a blast to put together for me.
stop all that noise, making it hard to think. I got it coming from every direction. It waves of white and pink. It's hard to pull a diamond from a hurricane. Feather from the rising tide. Everything is wrong. Differentiate the side. Same wrong, different time. Same wrong, different time. Same wrong, different time.
And it is a good segue because that is 100% a jam. That one there was completely that came out of nothing. We spent 10 days tracking this time. We did 5 last time. We did 10 this time of playing. We had a lot of songs, but we made a point each day to spend a couple hours just improvising. So we got the freedom. Let's do it. And one of the again going back to using equipment as toys as catalysts. I have this old drum machine which I just love called a Rhythm King, a Maestro Rhythm King, and it was made in the early '70s. It's big, it's a big cumbersome thing. It's just like it takes a lot of room in my apartment, and it's the drum machine that you hear on a lot of '70s records, but definitely on There's a Riot Going On by Sly and the Family Stone, which is one of my favorite records ever, and it's really the sound of that record. It's kind of it sounds like a Magnavox keyboard you had as a kid or whatever. It's like cha-cha and rumba and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And we used that a lot when we were jamming. We would it was sitting behind Dennis, and he would choose a rhythm and a speed and then play to it. And that was the starting point, whatever that was. And we recorded quite a few of those, but this is the only one that made the record. But it really was just playing to that beat that you hear when the song starts and letting it go. And that's where it went. And then you have that goes through all the different paces, and there's various solos. There's a kind of weird 6-string baritone guitar solo. There's a keyboard thing. There's a chord change that happens halfway through that Chris just kind of threw in, and we had to follow that. And once that was all done, we said, well, that's fine. Then it's up to me to think, now what do I do with this? I mean, if I want to make this into a song, where's the song? And that was kind of fun to think, where does the verse start? When does the singing start? Where's the chorus? How do you sing to this part and that part when nothing really changes? And that was that's the thing I like doing. I like writing to things that aren't traditional verse chorus type structures. But it was like having to find where the song fits to write the words and the melodies.
Well, that sounds challenging too, especially for this piece.
I guess they're like puzzles, it's like it's kind of like musician puzzles. Everybody's got, I think, people like crossword puzzles or playing Scrabble or whatever. And I think in everyone's line of work, I was a DJ before, and I was a music journalist and a sports writer for a while, and I was worked in record stores for a while. And each of those things have challenges that excite you. If when I worked at a record store, when I worked at Rhino Records, for me, it's like, well, how many copies of that ABC 12-inch can we order and sell? That was a puzzle. And when I would DJ at the Cafe de Grand in Hollywood, it's like, what song can I play, at the Top Jimmy and the Rhythm Take show at 1 a.m. between our third and fourth set that will keep people in the club and get them to keep drinking and having fun? And each thing you do, whatever it is, running or having a podcast, everything. You're always trying to figure something out, and I think with music, it's fun for us to have these jams and think, what do I do with this now? And it's not a burden. It's not a frustration. It's just the thing you like to do. It gets you to sharpen your claws on like you're a cat with a scratching post, sharpening your claws so you can use them later.
Nice.
It works for me.
Yeah, that's great. And the title, The Whole World is Watching, is definitely applicable to the theme of the whole record, right? You're talking about these times, and the whole world is watching.
It is. Oh yeah, these lyrics Like, I mean, the whole world's watching. That one's very literally like, somebody stop all that noise. It's like, the feeling of like there's so much happening, and I just know we're in this moment, but trying to sort it out is just, it's quite the chore. And, and that song does that. Treading Water is definitely a bit of that too. These times things comes into play at the end for sure. Treading Water Underneath the Stars is this weird little, almost like fantasy fable kind of thing of this, I've always been a fan of lyrics and lyricists who tell a story and use a lot of detail, but you don't fully understand what's going on. The way Dylan would do that a lot, or a lot of bands do that, where it's not just random things. I mean, that's fun too, but there's detail and characters and things going on, but why are they doing that? What's going on? And Treading Water Underneath the Stars is a real extreme case of that. Like, it's just kind of what's going on with the villagers, and they're bringing water from the reservoir, and what are they doing? They're busy with something, and and what's going to happen? And I don't know. I just kind of I was, for that type of writing. I really like that one. It's just kind of, here's a little world, and this we're going to leave you with this one, and it's just very it's I dig that sort of thing. More puzzles.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's that one line in there where you say, "I say this in the strictest of confidence, of course. Should your sister ask you anything, tell her what you want, except the truth."
I say this in the strictest confidence, of course. Should your sister ask you anything, tell her what you want, except the truth. I have the notebooks, the figures are confusing. A few small tweaks and twists will blow the shingles off the roof. Treading water underneath the stars. 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 Treading water underneath the stars.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's also a little bit of kind of, I guess Cold War, Stasi, KGB kind of thing going on there too. Just like we have to be very secretive, and there's something being done, and you can't know about it right now. But things are underfoot, so just be ready.
Yeah.
And then, I think again, there's a tendency these days to be just thinking something is going on, and I don't fully get the picture, and I know I'm going to find out about it, or I've got to find out about it. But there's this constant sense of suspense, like what is going to happen, and who knows, and who's controlling it, and maybe things were always that way. I mean, it's not. We didn't invent uncertainty and panic and fear and power manipulation. These aren't new things, but I think what we did invent in these times is the constant barrage of media.
Mm-hmm.
The feelings have always been there, but we never had so many things hitting us from all angles all the time, and we're all to cancel each other out. Again, black is white and white is black. It just gets every permutation of every opinion, of every interpretation is thrown at us every second, and we're left to make sense of it all. And that is the way these times are different. You could walk away before, and it's harder now. So in a way, I was hoping we could make a record that would fit in with that, and maybe be a bit of address it, but also be a bit of a soothe you a little bit, maybe kind of take you away from it all, sort of a 45-minute therapy session to kind of get you to the other side for a little while.
Yeah.
For as long as we have your attention, we'll help you out. Yeah. Then you're on your own.
Well, I want to piggyback on that, because in between The Whole World is Watching and Treading Water Underneath the Stars is Space Age, and that is really, a part of this therapy session. This song, first of all, the imagery, but the sounds created in this song are just, it is this take me on a trip and let me not think. But then, with Treading Water, I come back. But with Space Age, I can absolutely see how writing where the music came first. And I mean, was it hard to transition then into the lyrics? Because there's a lot going on in Space Age for me.
A lot, yeah.
Yes.
Climb him up, sister. Let's throw him back and lay him down. Put some salve on the blister. The concierge is coming to town. Don't let it put you in a rage. We're living in a space age.
That's really Jason's, masterwork. He's so good on that one. And then, boy, he's doing stuff in there that I do not have any idea how he's doing it. There's sounds in there that I know involve a guitar. I don't know what he's doing. And yeah, I don't know. I'll see, maybe when we start playing shows, I'll peek over and see what he's doing, because I got to find out. But he, that was another holdover from the last album. That was again when we left off the last record, and that was actually fully mixed. We had that mix and ready to go on the album. We took it off at the last minute. Just again, it seemed like other songs we wanted to have on there more, but it was and there was a lot of talk about that because it's a good track.
Yes. We
really loved it. It just didn't seem to fit. So it was, everything mixed, mastered, ready to go, and then taken off. So when we went to this record, we decided we might use it this time. But it didn't have, on the last one, it had words, but I didn't like them. And that was part of the thing, too. I think I was being a bit of a baby about it, like, I don't like these words. I don't want it on the record.
Yeah.
So I took away the lyrics and went back and wrote a whole new set of lyrics and just had more fun with it. And it's kind of, it's I don't know. I think the idea of the lyric in the song is sort of looking in the past, like, say, maybe mid-'70s, and imagining what the future might be like.
Right.
And and so it's a retro futuristic song, and so it's kind of playful about this sort of people thinking, we're cutting edge 1975, and what that might feel like, and I think it fit the music pretty well.
Yeah.
Because the music is a little bit of that too, just kind of it's sort of edgy and retro and mysterious at the same time. But it was tricky. It's one of those cases where just I could not find the words until this time around.
Wow. One of my favorite lines is, "Time is right, honey. There's no one looking anyway. We're the invisible white bunny along the Boulevard Lorraine."
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is a great song, and I think right now it's just on repeat. Like I keep wanting to deconstruct it every time I hear it. So now I can't wait to see it live. There you go.
I try to imagine, some things I write lyrically, they're about me or things I feel very close to, and sometimes I just write in character. And this. I try to imagine the people in this song, what they might look like, and what they're doing and what they're wearing and what sunglasses they have on, and it's kind of fun because they're definitely some weird kind of bizarro night lizard kind of people in this song, and I know they're gonna have a lot of fun, but they might hurt the next day.
Yes. Oh wow!
So Steve, did John and Yellow have a part in this song, in the production of Space Age?
Well, he had a big part in everything. He had a lot to do with this record, and with our encouragement, and we really, wanted him to bring, John, like you guys, like us, like a lot of it is a big music fanatic, and I kept saying, make the record you dreamed of making when you were 16, and I think he did that. I think he kind of went back to his earliest record collection, and he a lot of the song, there's just things he likes, and he had a lot to do with this one, and he was a big champion of this song on the last record. He mixed this song for How Did I Find Myself Here, and thought I was insane to not use it. So he definitely brought a lot of himself to the song.
Nice.
But he's just great. He's made, you mentioned some of the records he's done, but he's made so many of my favorite records. He made a record by a band called Phosphorescent called Muchacho about 3 years ago. That was my favorite album that year. And that was another one where just every year there'll be a couple. I try to keep up on things pretty well, and I listen to a lot of things. But each year there's one or two records that completely just obsess me and surprise me, and I just want to just put on repeat until I can just soak them up entirely. And that was that record. It was just this very trippy, again, kind of building its own little world kind of record that I just couldn't stop listening to. And that was John's, the way he works with sound. He's just damn good.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, he definitely killed it on this one, I think. There's a lot of great sounds going on throughout. Well, we've talked about all 10 songs on the album, Steve. Can you tell us a little bit about the album artwork? It's pretty trippy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a big fan of this guy's work. His name's Robert Beatty, and I first saw his work. There's a guy named Chris Forsyth, a musician out of Philadelphia. He has a band called Chris Forsyth and the Solar Motel Band, and he's made several records with them. He has a brand new solo record out right now, but I'm just a big fan of what he does. Kind of I don't know if you've heard his music, but it's a little bit like television mixed with maybe touches of the Stones and a bit of Led Zeppelin in certain ways, and it's just it's traditional but also outside at the same time, and very great guitar music. And he made a record called The Rarity of Experience a couple of years ago that really got me into his music, and it's one of those cases where the record cover was part of the whole experience. I mean, I love the music, but it's the cover put it all in perspective. So now I've gotten to know him a little bit, and we played shows together. And I said, "Who did that cover?" And he told me about this artist named Robert Beatty out of Lexington, Kentucky. And as it turns out, this guy Robert Beatty's done a bunch of different things. He's done a lot of Tame Impala records and did a whole lot of things. A lot of indie bands, the OCs, even that singer Kesha is one of her things. So he's definitely pretty well known. I think Rolling Stone said he was the hot new album cover artist a couple of years ago. But I approached him and he said, "Well, I'm kind of booked for the next 6 months, but I'm a big fan of the Dream Syndicate, so I'll do this."
Wow.
And he said, "But I want to hear the music. I don't just do covers without hearing what's going on." So he heard the music, and this was his interpretation of the album, which I thought was perfect.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, that he heard this record, and that's what he saw. So I think he interpreted it pretty well.
Nice. So
it's very 70s art rock kind of thing. So I love that too.
Yeah, and you liked it right off the bat, like when he presented it to you.
Yes, and knowing how busy he was and how much he's kind of doing some heavy popular stuff out there and things like that, I didn't feel like, I figured, God, if he sends me something I don't like, I'm going to feel really hard pressed to say, go back to the drawing board and do another one. He might have, but I was hoping, I hope I just like the first thing he gives me. And I did. It was perfect.
Nice.
So there was never that awkward moment of like, yeah, I like your stuff, but not that one. It was good right at the bat.
Yeah, that would have been very awkward. Lucky.
Well,
but
Steve,
I do like most of what he does, so it wasn't that surprising that he would, come through like that. I mean, everybody involved in this just brought so much to it. And I know you might say that about any record. I mean, I do, but that's the way. In the best cases, that's the way it is. The five of us hit a nice groove on this one. Steve McCarthy came up, and the way he sang on the backing vocals in that one day, and the way Linda Pittman sang with him, and John's engineering and mixing, and then Robert's cover, all of it fit together and flowed so well. Yeah. And that's. And that's the way it is when you make records where it works. When they don't work, it's the opposite. It's like, God, everyone's doing their best, but it's not gelling. And then you walk away from those records and think, well, we'll get it right next time. This was one of those nice records where everything happened the way it should happen. And that's great.
Nice.
You wish it could happen every time. And hopefully, and the nice thing too is that we recorded, like I said, a lot more than we used. And I think there's going to be plenty for other things. One of my favorite things that happened in this session, around the midway point of the session, down there, we were typically recording about noon to 11 p.m., more or less, kind of normal stuff. But it's the kind of studio, and I've worked at this place a lot, it's a studio outside of Richmond, Virginia, kind of a little bit out in the country. The people who run it, it's a father and son team, and Dad's an early morning guy, and Son's a late night guy, so you can record any time of the day you want, and they just love music. So you don't feel the clock ticking. You don't feel like, well, we got to get done by 10 o'clock, or no matter what, we're going to shut down. You can keep playing. And this one particular night, around 11:30 or 12, we started dipping into a bottle of tequila, as one does around 11:30 or 12, and we said, let's go out there and just jam. And Stephen McCarthy, actually, who lives down in Richmond, was hanging out. I said, Stephen, you can play along with us. And the six of us, the five-piece band of Stephen, went out there and played for 80 minutes straight.
Wow.
An 80-minute jam. And I know, jams are always especially intriguing to the ones doing it, but I think we kind of really hit some insanely intuitive, locked-in, wildly developing, great 80-minute jam. And I want to put that out someday as is, because I think it is very cool. So that might see the light of day in the next year and a half.
Wow, so that was recorded.
It'll be a very special thing. It'll be a special thing for those who want to hear that kind of thing, but it really was kind of that thing we do longer than we've ever done it at any other time. So that's one sitting back in the can for future release.
Oh my gosh, that sounds.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So
that'll be the trippiest musical therapy thing of all. That'll be that'll come with prescriptions.
There you go.
Yeah.
So possibly this 80-minute jam coming out in maybe a year and a half. Band's getting ready to go back on the road, supporting these times, but also the event at the Grammy Museum here in Los Angeles for promoting 3x4.
Yeah.
And the Dream Syndicate's live in-store appearance here in Los Angeles at Amoeba Records in May, plus some more U.S. dates and more shows in Europe. You are a road warrior, Steve. You're a road warrior. But is there anything else that you'd like the listeners to know about so they can go and see you?
No, just as I think yes, I guess this is airing before next week, so that's great. So yeah, the Grammy thing is sold out, unfortunately. So if you don't have a ticket, do you guys have tickets?
I have a ticket.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. It'd be criminal if you weren't there. So I'm glad you're going to be there. That'll be a lot of fun. And but the Amoeba thing is wide open. So come out and see us, because I don't know. I'm sure we'll play LA again this year, but I'm not sure when. So this is for now. This is our only West Coast show. Oh, the other thing we did, which will see the light of day also this year, is a band we really love called Psychic Temple, a Long Beach band. It's kind of the brainchild of one guy, Chris Schlarb, who is a producer, studio owner. He's done a lot of work with different bands. He's making this double album where each side is him backed by a different band, and we are one side of his new record, which is coming out in the fall, and it's really good. We did it in Long Beach in one weekend last January, and I know he's really excited about it. I think that'll come out in the fall, so we'll see. Yeah, that'll be another thing coming up, and that might be a good excuse to come out and play some LA shows, because we don't want to stay away too long. But I don't know. It's funny. It's funny to talk about all the things going on, all the shows and all the touring. It's just what we like doing. It's never, even when you're and jet lag very well right now. I mean, after the Greece to Norway to LA jaunt, it's like even when you're most tired and you just feel like you haven't slept in days and you just can barely stand. There's something about just getting up there and playing this music that just kind of makes it all worth it, and really, really just wakes you up immediately. How you feel the next morning, that's a different story. But on stage, it's always great.
And one thing I do want to mention before we hang up with you is to our listeners, especially, there is a limited edition but absolutely beautiful blue LP of these times that they'll be on sale at the shows, and but you can also send out an email to Anti Records.
Yes, and get them. You should get them right away, because they're going to go really fast. But I think they'll be at Amoeba. I think we'll have them at the Amoeba show. Pretty sure. So yeah, if you dig blue vinyl, it's a real blue, extremely blue vinyl. You should get it while you can, because those things go fast.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful, and you, as Jeff mentioned, any good record collector worth their salt needs this.
Yeah, for sure.
I love like all these things I loved as a kid, like colored vinyl and picture discs are coming back. That's just great. People buying black lights. That's and I gotta say, you've inspired me. I need to get the Paisley blacklight poster and a blacklight so I can fully enjoy that. So that's, I think it might be the second I get off this phone call, I might have to get blacklight.
Nice.
Oh, and one last thing. I know this is still a work in progress, but you mentioned at the very beginning about a new project working on with Pat Thomas regarding your solo work. So is that kind of a couple of years out, or?
No, soon. I think early next year. Yeah, Pat's putting together this project we talked about. I moved to New York. It's 25 years now. I moved here in '94, and in the 10 years that followed, I did more writing, recording than I'd ever done in my life before or since. I just kind of hit one of those nice things where you just hit some kind of stride and everything feels easy and you just can't turn off the tap and just, there's this shockingly little effort to do things you're excited about. And that was that 10-year period. So Pat talked about making a box set of the record stretching from my album Melting in the Dark to Tick, Tick, Tick. And there's about a dozen records in that time. And I recently found a bunch of old tapes of recordings, and there was a ton of outtakes, demos I'd forgotten about, just all kinds of things. And so this box is going to have all the records, but also I think 40 or 50 unreleased tracks. Oh. It's going to be a really, really cool project. I mean, it's a real labor of love, and Pat and I are diving into it. We're actually going to get together this week in the studio and get the tracks together and start working on that. So that's going to be. I'm excited about that. Because it's just kind of, to say 40 or 50 unreleased tracks is exciting in a way, but it's also like, well, are you digging the bottom barrel? But they're actually really, really cool things I'd completely forgotten about. So it'll be a very, I wouldn't say my favorite because I like what I'm doing right now, but that was just a particularly exciting period for me, and it's going to document that period, those 10 years really well.
Fantastic.
And with Pat, it's in very good, safe hands because he gets it. He knows how to do that. He knows how to put that kind of thing together. And he will. The thing I love about working with Pat is he really puts himself 100% into what he's working on, and as a fan. But he's also questions things, and he and I will have arguments. And he will, when we put this project together, with all the outtakes, we listened to, I think it was, I don't even know, like 50, 60 hours of music. And he was calling it the Gong Show because he would say, a song would come out, he'd say, Gong. I say, what? That's a good one. He says, that's terrible. And we get these arguments like, all right. And he usually won the argument because he has a perspective I don't have. So there are things that didn't make it. Pat was the final judge.
That is hilarious.
Oh, great. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time today and for letting our listeners have a peek into this new album. It really is great, and thank you so much for putting it out.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for doing what you do. You guys are really, especially in these times where all the bands, in the scene, all the bands making this kind of music are active and doing great things, and it's nice that you're shining a light on this corner of what we all do, our little playground. So that's fantastic.
We're big fans.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm excited about the Grammy thing, and I really hope that it's not the end of Paisley Underground stuff, because it's been a fun year where we all have been in contact and working together and talking together. And we've really, I think one of the most amazing things about the scene is we've all remained friends. We just really like, as you'll see on Monday. So hopefully there's going to be more Paisley Underground, something or other in some way after Monday.
Excellent.
That makes me happy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Great talking to you.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Soraya.
Dude.
We love this guy.
Steve Wynn is one righteous guy.
We love this guy.
Man. Okay, wait. Let's just backtrack for a quick second.
Okay.
Okay, so Dream Syndicate these times. Okay? Then you've got, and if you want it, and I know Jeff and I want it. I'm sure everybody else wants it. Limited edition. And Jeff, I'm talking cobalt blue.
Yeah,
it is
gorgeous.
blue LP, limited edition. Then add on to that this 80-minute jam session with Stephen McCarthy from Long Riders that I'm dying to hear.
Yes.
Possibly out in a year and a half. Then this box set of covering a 10-year period of solo work that he's working on with Pat Thomas, plus the side of an LP with Psychic Temple.
That sounds great too.
Dude, plus touring. Plus he said he might come, the band might be doing some LA shows at some point, hopefully soon, but aside from what's already scheduled, dude.
You could tell this is just what he lives and breathes, right? I mean,
if nobody follows him on social media, he's got pretty active Twitter and Instagram. You need to, because the adventures he has are, first of all, everywhere and then some. But you see this guy just really, there's always a smile on his face when he's playing.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when he was talking too, that to see them on stage, they look so happy, and that's where they belong.
It's just, they're a fun band to watch. And, I think he kind of downplayed a little bit, how he said, it's not a good thing if a band is always unpredictable, because then, something is lost there. But the truth is, every time you go to a Dream Syndicate show live, you don't know how that show's going to go.
Yeah.
So, the fact that they're unpredictable, yes, to a certain degree, that is predictable. We don't know what we're going to get, but they always bring it, and they go full force.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, dude.
Yes.
Man, Steve Wynn is one cool cat.
Yeah, you know what? Sorry, like we've mentioned before, we've been able to hear these songs for a little while. I can't wait till after Friday when it gets out into the public and the response. I can only imagine what the response is going to be, because we've mentioned before, it's a very strong album. We love it from beginning to end. It was great hearing all these stories about each song. I'm so excited for this to be officially released.
Welcome home, Jeff. Your welcome home gift.
Yes.
Steve Wynn on a platter.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's good to be us.
This is a great time to be a music fan.
Mm-hmm.
These times are pretty great. See what I did there?
Yes.
Did you see how he mentioned it at the end? These times.
Yeah.
It's like I almost said, I see what you did there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, gente, man, go get this album, download it, buy it, get the beautiful blue disc. But you need this in your collective libraries. Gente, hago rubiar.
Groove on, Paisley people.
Later.